at 1 for today. Now it's time for the latest wherever you are. Have a very good afternoon. Bye from us.
Hello there, good afternoon. After 3 years, the SNP's tumultuous power-sharing deal with the Scottish Green Party has come to an end. It follows disputes over the government's decision to scrap key climate targets and pause the prescription of puberty blockers to under-18s on Scotland's NHS. First Minister Humza Yousaf said the deal had served its purpose, but the Greens said the SNP had sold out future generations. The SNP will now form a minority government. Well, in a moment, we'll get the latest reaction from Holyrood, but first with the story of the day. Here's more from our political correspondent, Andrew Kerr.
Patrick Harvey, is the coalition over?
The Greens on their way out of Butte House and out of government. An early morning visit to the First Minister's residence saw them dumped as partners. Back down at Holyrood, Green faces turned red with anger.
The First Minister has decided, I'm sorry to say, to capitulate to the most reactionary, backward-looking forces within the SNP, and it's the opposite of what's in Scotland's best interests.
I think the future generations of Scotland have been betrayed. The progressive policies that Greens were working towards were about creating a long-standing vision for a greener and fairer Scotland, and now anything we see brought to the Chamber will be watered down, delayed, underfunded.
The First Minister was still in favour of the deal 48 hours ago, but news of an emergency cabinet meeting signalled a change.
The Butte House Agreement was intended to provide stability to the Scottish Government, and it has made possible a number of achievements, but it has served its purpose. It's no longer guaranteeing a stable arrangement in Parliament. The events of recent days have made that clear.
There have been tensions in the partnership culminating in the past week. Green members engineered a vote on whether to stay after 2030 climate targets were ditched and there were concerns over trans healthcare. The news has delighted many SNP MSPs and MPs who thought the Greens were driving their party in the wrong direction.
I think it's a great opportunity for the Scottish Government and the party to focus on our priorities and to focus on delivery. Thanks.
With glum faces in the chamber at First Minister's questions, a dramatic development from the Conservatives.
I can confirm today that on behalf of the Scottish Conservatives, I am lodging a vote of no confidence in Humza Yousaf. He is a failed First Minister. He is focused on the wrong priorities for Scotland.
And calls from the other opposition parties for an election.
The people of Scotland didn't vote for this First Minister. The people of Scotland didn't vote for this mess and this chaos. So isn't it time to end the circus and call an election?
Humza Yousaf said he could be judged on his track record. The Greens haven't decided if they will back the First Minister in a vote of confidence.
So we will now go and discuss this as an MSP group.
The First Minister is now taking the SNP back into minority government, and as the Greens march off, there are risks for him. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland, Holyrood.
Well, our political correspondent Kirsten Campbell is in Holyrood for us this lunchtime, where Humza Yousaf has been facing questions from MSPs. And Kirsten, as we've just been hearing there in Andrew Kerr's report, the Scottish Conservative leader Douglas Ross is to table a vote of no confidence in the First Minister.
Well, the garden lobby here at Holyrood was something of a school playground this morning as people speculated about the breakup of this relationship and whether one had dumped the other before they could be chucked. We even had Taylor Swift lyrics about messy relationship breakups being quoted in the chamber. But there are serious consequences to this because there is now no guarantee that Humza Yousaf can win a no confidence vote. He no longer commands a majority in the chamber. Now, it's not impossible to run a minority government. Alex Salmond managed it very successfully back in 2007. You have to cooperate on an issue-by-issue basis, and he actually got a lot of his budgets through with the support of the Conservatives. But these are different times. It's difficult to cooperate cross-party when parties are competing against each other in the run-up to an election. And the SNP has just sacked the very people it needs to back them in this vote. And remember, the Greens are furious. Even before this motion of no confidence was mentioned, they were questioning whether this government will still be in power by the next budget. So this is a time of real jeopardy for the SNP.
Thank you very much for that update. Well, that's the view from Parliament, but the collapse of the SNP Green Power sharing deal will echo far beyond Holyrood. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane is in Aberdeen for us. Kevin, what's the reaction been to this from those who are worried about those climate targets being scrapped?
Well, there is a theme to the responses, which is that they don't want the climate commitments to go the same way as this power sharing agreement. WWF Scotland saying that the First Minister must urgently continue to take steps to address the nature and climate emergencies. Friends of the Earth Scotland saying that he must now seek to strengthen the desperately weak, as they call it, policy package that was offered last week. And Oxfam Scotland saying it's time now for our leaders to turn their gaze from party politics to the planet. But you know what's interesting is that the First Minister will now have to seek support for the legislation to scrap the climate change targets that led to the Butte House Agreement collapsing today. He can no longer rely on the Scottish Greens for that. He's unlikely to get support from the Liberal Democrats or Scottish Labour, so he's going to have to rely on an alliance with the Conservatives to scrap those targets, and he described them today in Parliament as the party of climate change deniers.
OK, Kevin Keane, thank you very much for that. And of course, we'll bring you much more on this story tonight on Reporting Scotland at 6:30. But now to news away from politics. And a 66-year-old man is in a critical condition in hospital after a car crashed into a house in East Renfrewshire. The Vauxhall Mocha crashed in Fern Drive in Barrhead at about 5:45 yesterday evening. The man was taken to the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow for treatment. The 77-year-old woman who was driving the car was uninjured. Almost a quarter of 15-year-old boys here have smoked cannabis. That's the highest of 44 countries who took part in an international survey. 4,000 Scottish children were asked about their use of cigarettes, vapes, alcohol and cannabis in one of the largest surveys of its kind, analysed by the World Health Organization. 23% of 15-year-old boys interviewed here said they had smoked the drug. Football now, and the SFA's confirmed the Scottish Cup final between Celtic and Rangers on the 25th of May will kick off at 3 o'clock. The fifth Old Firm meeting of the season will clash with the Manchester City v Man United FA Cup final, with the BBC providing live TV coverage of both of those matches. OK, well, let's take a look at your weather forecast now. And Derek McIntosh is in the studio. Hello.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks very much indeed. Good afternoon to you. Well, many of us have seen some lovely spells of sunshine so far today, but also a few scattered showers. And that's what we'll continue to see through the course of the afternoon. Sunny spells and scattered showers. The showers will chiefly affect northern and northeastern parts of the country. Some of those wintry on the hills and high ground, and chilly feeling in the northeasterly breeze along North Sea coasts and across the Northern Isles. Highs here of 8 or 9 Celsius, but up to 11 Celsius in the west. As we head into this evening and overnight, most of the inland showers will fade, but we'll continue to see a rash of showers affecting northern coastal areas. Some of those will be wintry, down to around 200 to 300 metres or so, but elsewhere it becomes dry, clear and cold. A widespread frost tonight. Town and city temperatures down close to freezing, but sub-zero in the countryside. So a cold and frosty start to come to the day tomorrow, but a dry one with some lengthy spells of sunshine across southern, central and western Scotland. But through the course of the day, the cloud will bubble up. Showers will break out too. Once again, some of them will be wintry over the hills and high ground. Nowhere really immune to catching a shower, but once again feeling chilly along North Sea coasts and across the Northern Isles with an onshore breeze. And another cold night to come tomorrow night with a widespread frost for southern, central and eastern Scotland. And then through the course of the weekend, it's looking mostly dry, but there will be some showers around, especially on Saturday in the northwest. But through the course of the weekend, it's looking mostly dry with some lovely spells of sunshine, and with light winds around too. It shouldn't feel too bad at all in the sunshine. That's your forecast for now. Sarah.
OK, Derek, thank you very much for that. Well, that's all from us here this lunchtime, but Sally Magnuson will be live at Holyrood with Reporting Scotland at 6:30 tonight. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.